In the year 1560, one city quietly controlled more than half of Europe's trade. Spices from Asia, silver from the Americas, wool from England, wine from France all flowed through a single port. It was not London. It was not Paris. It was Antwerp. And just 25 years later, it collapsed almost overnight. How does the richest city in the world fall so fast, and what does that tell us about modern financial empires? Welcome to Rich Map, the channel where money, power, and history intersect, and where the rise and fall of empires is explained through trade, finance, and strategy. Today's story is not just about a city from the past. It's about how global dominance is built, why it never lasts, and what causes wealth to move from one place to another again and again across centuries. This is the story of Antwerp, how it became the beating heart of global commerce, and how it lost everything. In 1560, Antwerp was the richest city in Europe. Portuguese spice ships unloaded exotic cargo at its docks. Spanish treasure fleets converted American silver into usable credit at its exchanges. German banking houses managed international loans from its counting rooms. English merchants sold wool through its markets, while French wine passed through its warehouses. Every major commercial route in the known world passed through this single Flemish port. Antwerp did not merely participate in global trade, it controlled it. The numbers were astonishing. More than half of Europe's imports moved through Antwerp's harbor. Its exchange processed transactions worth millions of florins every single day. The population doubled in less than a generation. Surging from 50,000 to over 100,000 residents, Antwerp had become the financial and commercial center of the world. And then less than 25 years later it was over. The docks fell silent. The banks relocated to Amsterdam. Merchants scattered to London. The once busy exchange echoed with emptiness. What had taken generations to build collapsed in mere months. Antwerp's rise was not accidental. Geography played a role. The city sat along the Scheldt River, giving it access deep into Europe through Bruges and beyond. Rivers allowed heavy cargo to move inland efficiently. But geography alone does not create empires. Systems do. Antwerp became the center of an unprecedented global network, one where information, credit, and goods moved faster than anywhere else on Earth. That transformation began with the Portuguese. Portugal had discovered the sea route to India, breaking Venice's monopoly on Asian trade. But discovery meant nothing without distribution. Portuguese ships could reach Asia, but they lacked the financial and logistical infrastructure to manage global commerce. They needed warehouses, banks, insurance, brokers, legal systems, and currency exchange. Antwerp provided all of it. Portuguese captains delivered spice cargoes to Antwerp. Flemish merchants handled everything else, financing future voyages, storing goods until demand peaked, ensuring shipments, managing buyers from London to Vienna, and converting profits into currencies accepted across Europe. Antwerp supplied the system. Spanish silver followed the same pattern, an even larger scale. Treasure fleets brought unimaginable quantities of gold and silver from the Americas. But raw metal is not money. It must be minted, valued, distributed, and trusted. Antwerp's financial houses transformed Spanish plunder into European currency. They set exchange rates between Spanish relays, Flemish florins, German thalers, and English pounds. They decided which rulers could borrow against future shipments and who had to pay up front. Spain conquered the New World. The city's bankers pioneered financial tools that barely existed before: letters of credit usable across borders, insurance contracts for overseas shipments, and forward contracts for goods that had not yet arrived. This is how commercial dominance truly works. Goods require finance. Finance requires trust. Trust requires concentration. Merchants gathered in Antwerp because everyone else was there. Information traveled faster because more people brought it. Credit was cheaper because banks competed. Legal disputes were resolved quickly because specialized commercial courts existed. Antwerp became indispensable because it made itself indispensable. In 1531, the city built a revolutionary stock exchange. a dedicated space for global trade. Unlike earlier Italian exchanges, Antwerp's operated at a truly international scale. Portuguese spice traders negotiated with German silver merchants. English cloth exporters arranged financing with Spanish bankers. Italian silk dealers coordinated with French wine merchants. The exchange became the physical hub of a global commercial network. But indispensability is never permanent. Antwerp's power depended on conditions it could not control: political stability in the Low Countries, Spanish tolerance of Protestant merchants, free navigation of the Scheldt River, access to English markets, and peace between Europe's great powers. By the 1580s, those conditions were unraveling. In 1576, unpaid Spanish soldiers mutinied and sacked Antwerp in what became known as the Spanish Fury. Over 7,000 people were killed. Millions in property were destroyed. If Spanish soldiers would destroy the city that funded their emperor, nowhere was safe. Capital fled. Merchants left. In 1585, Spanish forces besieged Antwerp directly. They built a massive bridge across the Scheldt River, cutting the city off from the sea. Ships stopped arriving. Cargo stopped moving. The network stopped functioning. Trade does not wait for wars to end. It finds new routes. Amsterdam offered everything Antwerp no longer could: security, access, neutrality, and lower taxes. Protestant merchants were welcomed. Ships reached open sea without contested rivers. Legal protections were stronger. The transition was swift. Silver followed. Financial expertise moved north. What followed was not recovery, it was replacement. Amsterdam improved Antwerp's model. The Dutch East India Company provided structure the Portuguese lacked. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange offered advanced financial instruments. The Bank of Amsterdam stabilized currency and credit at a level Antwerp never achieved. Antwerp kept its buildings. It lost its networks. And without networks, infrastructure is just expensive real estate. This pattern repeated itself. Amsterdam eventually yielded to London. London later faced competition from New York. Today, New York competes with Singapore, Dubai, and Shanghai. The logic never changed. Commercial power concentrates where conditions are best. When conditions shift, power moves. Modern global cities operate under the same rules Antwerp did 5 centuries ago. Political stability, legal predictability, infrastructure, currency, trust, and regulatory clarity attract capital. You do not lose when you do not know. You lose when you do not learn. And that's the lesson Antwerp left behind. Wealth is never permanent. Dominance is never guaranteed. And the forces that move capital today are the same ones that reshaped the world 500 years ago. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe to Rich Map and hit the like button. It helps the channel grow and allows us to keep exploring the hidden mechanics behind money, power, and history. Because history is not just the past. It's a map, and those who read it move ahead of everyone else. See you in the next one.